You thought he was done? You thought the takes were too hot to handle? You better think again. He's back with even more scorching opinions, more controversial predictions, and the kind of truth bombs that only Zain Bando can deliver. If you missed the first round, prepare yourself. This is the follow-up you've been waiting for. It's time for Zain Zinger Part 2, another certified hit from the Empty the Bench Network. Here's your host, Zain Bando.
Good morning, everyone. We are live. This is Zain Zinger Part 2 for Sunday, March 22nd. Hope you all are doing well on this Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening from wherever you may be. This is Zain Zinger Part 2, an extension of Bando's Breakdowns, which airs every Friday at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. I'm your host, Zain Bando, that will be taking you through the world in sports for about the next 30 or 45 minutes or so. There will be no gridiron gurus after me, as they were on Saturday evening for the first time in I don't know how long. Maybe they've never been on Saturday night. But nonetheless, though, 30 or so minutes from me. Shout out to the 9 people that are already in the stream this morning. So should be a fun stream as well. Thanks again so much for all of your guys' support of this stream. It really means a lot to me. So let's get into the logistics. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. To do so, at Bando's Breakdowns is the handle to do just that. That's where all the clips live. The reels live on Instagram and TikTok, and then, of course, the regular clips on X as well. Still, one more that's going to go out. We had a bit of a Twitter issue with this morning's clip, but we will get that fixed as soon as the stream is over. YouTube.com/EV Network is where you're going to want to find everything about my show and every other show across the network as well. So again, youtube.com/EV Network is where you're going to want to find all of that. Listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever your podcast. The latest edition of Bando's Breakdowns, that was episode 82, just came out this past Friday. So be sure to check it out if you haven't. Big Ten tournament recap, March Madness so far, who I have going to the Final Four national championship, which at the time we're doing this live stream, all 4 of my national championship teams are still alive for to cut down the nets in early April in Indianapolis. So should be very exciting as well. My name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and ETB Network co-host. You can find all of my work across several platforms, including the Sporting News, Field Level Media. Didn't do anything for them yesterday. Unfortunately, I was not feeling 100%, but usually every single Saturday, I'm doing a UFC recap for them. I will be back next Saturday for UFC Seattle, which is the Adesanya Joe Pyfer card. I do stuff for MMA Knockout on Sports Illustrated, as well as Dallas Wings on Sports Illustrated, and of course, on a very kind of infrequent basis, Ohio State Buckeyes on SI as well. So you check me out several places, and yeah, that's kind of where you can find all my work. Getting into what we're going to be discussing today as well. And just as a reminder, Zain Zinger Part 2, you can catch the replay or the live stream right now on several platforms. We are live on the ETV Network YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, the Bando's Breakdowns Twitter account, the MTGP Twitter account, the Press Row Twitter account, and the Bando's Breakdowns Twitter account as well. So we're live on a few places here as well. So if you're checking out the stream from any of those places, please be sure to retweet, like, share it. That way it tells me that you like what you're seeing every single Saturday. And it also tells me, or excuse me, Sunday rather. Why do I keep saying Saturday? I'm all over the place this morning. If you can't tell, I woke up fairly recently, but I'm feeling energized. I can promise you guys that. Nonetheless, though, every Sunday rather, you can catch this replay and or current episode each passing week. Again, an extension of Bando's breakdowns. If you haven't checked out episode 82, you should certainly go and do that. Let's get into what we're going to be discussing, starting with the first topic of today. The UFC revealed its regulatory specifics for the White House card, UFC Freedom 250, taking place Sunday, June 14th from the South Lawn in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump's birthday, headlined by 2 title fights, 1 interim, 1 undisputed, a 6-fight card. UFC put out a press release earlier this week explaining the regulatory affairs of how this is going to go down. So, without further ado, let me pull up what that email said, because I think it was very interesting to note that. So, if I have a second here, let's do this. And here it is. So, as of Thursday, this is when it came out. So, Thursday at just past 9 a.m. Eastern from Washington, D.C., it says, and I'm going to read parts of this here. There's a statement from the UFC. There's also a statement from the Association of Boxing Commission. So I'm going to read this to you guys. Then I'll give my opinion as to what I really think is going on. And I think this is good. I think they could have, gone with ABC much sooner. I don't think they needed to make it into a media circus, but or maybe I don't know. Maybe this took them longer than expected, and they're finally doing it now. But nonetheless, here's what it said as of March 19th. UFC, the world's premier MMA organization, today announced that the Association of Boxing Commissions, ABC, the unified regulatory body that oversees and supports the safety, integrity, and standardization of professional boxing and MMA events in the United States, will serve as an independent third party to advise on the regulatory operations for the unprecedented UFC event scheduled for Sunday, June 14th, on the grounds of the iconic White House, one of the most significant and renowned locations in the world. In a statement published today, well, this is as of Thursday, as I just said, ABC President Timothy Shipman wrote this: as the event is being held on federal property, there is no requirement for the UFC to select a state athletic commission to oversee the event. The UFC expresses its commitment to ensuring that the event is among the most thoroughly regulated in the history of the sport, and has requested that the ABC serve as an independent third party to assist in assembling the most qualified group of judges, referees, and inspectors in the world. An inspector can be anybody that's not one of those other 2 things I just said. So obviously there's tons of other people that work in the UFC that have ties to the commission or work very closely with the commission. So if you want to know what that word means, the inspector word, that's kind of where we're going there. Hunter Campbell, UFC Chief Business Officer, and Mark Ratner, Senior Vice President, UFC Government and Regulatory Affairs, will collaborate with ABC on the details of the regulatory oversight of the event. Here is what Ratner had to say. And Ratner's been in the business for a long time, in the fight business since the mid 80s, I'm pretty sure, and then he's been with the UFC since way, way, way back, mid to early 2000s. He's been around a long time, and a lot of people think he's a legend when it comes to being the first guy to truly see the vision for wanting not just MMA to be regulated, but for combat sports to be one of the safest sports in the world in terms of death or serious injury. UFC is the gold standard for athlete health and safety in combat sports, bar none, and we will absolutely bring those same industry-leading standards to this incredible, unique event at the White House. We thank the ABC for lending their expertise to ensure the highest standards of competitive integrity and professional governance to a truly unprecedented stage for mixed martial arts. And this is no longer part of the statement. The press release goes on to say the groundbreaking event will take place on the South Lawn of the White House in Washington, D.C., marking the first professional sports event held at the world-famous location. And as we skip down here a little bit more, it says, this is very interesting. I've not heard of this yet. This may be the first time that they publicly put this in a release, but it says the event will stream live on Paramount Plus in the United States at no additional cost for to subscribers. That opens to me a lot of questions for sure. Does this mean Paramount Plus only? Does this mean split up on CBS? Does this mean it's a simulcast event? How that sentence reads to me is that Paramount Plus is going to be the only provider of the event in the United States. That's how I interpret it. Obviously, it's March 22nd. The event's June 14th. A lot can change before June 14th, but I thought it was very interesting to note that. And obviously, as we know, main event, Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje, UFC lightweight championship. And then, of course, the co-main event interim title, Cyril Gane and Alex Pereira. Of course, the winner, you would hope, fights Tom Aspinall. So we shall see what happens with the event. There's been a lot of talk about the event, a lot of just overall speculation. What's going to happen with it? How is it going to go off? 85,000 people. How are they going to fit all of them in? The free tickets thing. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. All I know is I'm like 90% sure that I will not be there. I'm like 90% sure I won't be making that trip. I think I'm gonna hold out for Vegas, and there might be some good news coming for my neck of the woods too. I don't want to see too much more about it because it's not publicly out there. I probably shouldn't have even said anything at all. I was hinting at it. I didn't use the location name, but there's gonna be some good news coming my way. Allegedly, let's just say that. So there are those fights as well. That's kind of the update with the White House card. What's going on with it? And it seems that the hype from it has died down a little bit now that we know who is fighting on the card. So there's that. Let's talk about March Madness so far. It's been a very exciting tournament. All of my teams are still alive for the Final Four. Again, just as a reminder, Final Four teams we had: Duke, Houston, Michigan, Arkansas. All mathematically alive for the Final Four. So far, so good for all four of those teams as well. And it should be a very interesting Sweet 16. We have a few spots still needing to be determined going into today's slate of basketball. Let's take a look at the current bracket as it sits right now, and I will tell you guys who is currently set up to play whom. All right, here we go. So Nebraska yesterday in the South region knocked off Vanderbilt 74-72 in the final seconds. They will take on the winner of Florida versus Iowa. That's later today. Illinois knocked off VCU last night 76-55. We'll get to Illinois in just a little bit. Illinois will be taking on Houston. Houston knocked off Texas A&M 88-57 last night as well. Houston advances to the Sweet 16 and will be playing in Houston. They're not the host site, Rice University is, but they will have a large contingent of Cougar fans in the building as it is in Texas. So Houston versus Illinois on Thursday night. Winner goes to the Elite Eight, rather, more than likely against Florida, assuming Iowa doesn't pull a stunner and a huge dent in everybody's bracket, which I don't think, as far as I know, that there are any perfect brackets left. But if there are, there's very few of them left. All right. Moving over to the Midwest region now, we have, and by the way, these games are going to be played in Chicago this weekend. I will be there Friday and Sunday from the United Center. 2 games on Friday and then 1 game on Sunday to determine who goes to the Final Four in Indianapolis. So here are the games that will determine who plays in the Midwest region. So today you have a bunch of games on tap. Virginia versus Tennessee, 3 versus 6. And the winner of that game will play Iowa State against Kentucky. Kentucky needed to survive a late game regulation heroics to force overtime against Santa Clara the other day in St. Louis. And then, of course, it knocked off Santa Clara in the overtime session to advance to the to advance to this game to try to get to the Sweet 16. Sorry, I was losing my train of thought. Final score of the Santa Clara Kentucky game, though, was 89-84 in overtime. And of course, Iowa State blew past Tennessee State 108-74. And then, of course, looking over to the other side of the Midwest region, you have Alabama playing Texas Tech today, and the winner of that game will take on Michigan, who knocked off St. Louis yesterday, 95-72. So you may have some pretty good games in Chicago. If I were to give my predictions as to who I think is going to be playing on Friday, I think it'll be Michigan versus Alabama, and I think it'll be Virginia versus Iowa State. So I think it's going to be very chalk heavy, and I think you're going to see Iowa State win and Michigan win to set up the game in the Elite Eight to see who goes to the Final Four. That's my. That's I think you're going to get one. I think the one Big Ten team that's in this region, I think is going to get out of it. That's my prediction. All right, moving over to more substantial things. So let's move over to the West region. So number 3 Gonzaga got upset last night by Texas, 74-68. Texas will take on the winner of the game that's coming up in an hour, Purdue versus Miami. That game is from St. Louis, so the winner there will take on that winner in San Jose next week. And then, of course, those winners will advance and see who goes to the, of course, Elite Eight and then Final Four. So there's that as well. Looking over at the other part of the West bracket here, Arizona versus Utah State. The winner of that game will take on Arkansas. Arkansas outlasted High Point 94-88. Before that, Arkansas won its opening round game versus Hawaii 97-78. All right, looking over on the left side of the bracket here in the East region, Duke outlasted TCU 81-58. They will take on the winner of the Kansas St. John's game. And then, of course, Kansas knocked off Cal Baptist 68-60. And then, of course, Michigan State survives and advances and knocks off North Dakota State to set up a game with Louisville. Louisville outlasting South Florida 83-79. Then, of course, looking over at this bottom part here, which there's a matchup in here that could be very intriguing, or two. You have Kentucky, or excuse me, not Kentucky. You have UConn taking on UCLA, and the winner of that will more than likely take on Michigan State. So it should be very exciting as well. So we shall see what happens on that particular portion of things. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, so, and then obviously, as we just said, as we opened with Nebraska, obviously, what other parts of the bracket have we not discussed here at all yet? Have we discussed everything? Let me make sure I have my ducks in a row. I think I have everything covered for the most part. But now we're going to get into Illinois because I'm excited to talk about that. So let's get into Illinois here in the final few minutes before we get into some UFC stuff. To end the stream, Illinois will rematch Houston in the Sweet 16. It's a game that saw Illinois play Houston in 2022. Houston won that game to advance to the Elite Eight. Or no, excuse me, to the Sweet 16 that year. This game, though, will see the winner go to the Elite Eight, which will remain in Houston. Illinois obviously looking really good through its first 2 games of action. Offensively, they're really fluid. In the first game against Penn, it was David Murkovic that stole the show. And last night, it was Stojakovic with 21 points for the Illini to win the game against a very, very dangerous VCU team who saw a huge, huge piece of their puzzle go down. I think it was Hill who got hurt. I'm pretty sure. Nonetheless, though, Illinois wins the game. It was 76-55. And of course, Houston has obviously been on a roll. Kelvin Sampson has his guys in a good spot. Could have won the national championship last year. It did not happen. This is the second time since 2005 that Illinois will be playing in the Sweet 16. As we know, in 2024, it knocked off Iowa State to advance to the Elite Eight in Boston, where it fell to the eventual national champion UConn Huskies. So they're looking to not go through a repeat of that once more. But nonetheless, though, it should be a really exciting game. Really much looking forward to seeing how this goes down. It's number 2 versus number 3, 2 of the most dynamic freshmen in the country. Of course, though, Keaton Wagler is the story to watch, as he could be a top 10 NBA lottery pick should he choose to leave Illinois at the end of the year, which I really hope does not happen, but I feel like it's more inevitable than ever before. So something to bear in mind there if you are the Illini as to how many pieces you may lose holistically. So excited for the game. Will Illinois season end Thursday night? We shall see. But it still means that we will have basketball to discuss on the newest edition of Bando's Breakdown. So looking very forward to it. Brad Underwood picks up his 300th win as a Division I coach. Let's take a look at some other numbers from last night's win for Illinois, if we can, according to my great friends over at according to my great friends over at Sports Information for U of I. They do an unbelievable job with everything that they do. They're really good at what they do. All right, let's take a look at some of these numbers here. Illinois is 26-8 now, tied for the 5th most wins in school history. Underwood now owns 2 of the top 5 single-season win totals in program history. Let's take a look at who he stacks up against, including himself in the years 04 and 2025. All right, Bruce Weber in 05, 37-2. That's obviously the year that they lost in the national championship to North Carolina. In 1989, Lou Henson's Final Four team went 31-5. Bill Self took Illinois to the Elite Eight at 27-8. Underwood this year, 26-8, as was previously mentioned. Bruce Weber in 04 and 06 took Illinois to the Sweet 16 and the round of 32, respectively. Bill Self, Elite or Sweet 16, and you have to go all the way back to 85 and 84 to find the first time in school history in regarding this wins category conversation that Illinois had 20 plus wins in this current era that we're in. So 26-9 for Lou Henson and 26-5 for Lou Henson, respectively, in 85 and 84. Underwood earns his 300th win, as I just said. Illinois advances to the Sweet 16 for the second time in 3 seasons under Brad Underwood, the 10th time since the tournament field was increased to 32 in 1975, and the 13th time in school history. Illinois advanced to the Sweet 16 twice in a 3-year span, following the team's 2024 Elite Eight appearance for the first time since a run of 4 Sweet 16s in 5 years. This was a great time to be an Illinois fan. It was between 2001 and 2005. Elite Eight, Sweet 16, Sweet 16 national runner-up. Underwood is the 4th Illinois coach to lead the Fighting Illini to multiple Sweet 16 appearances since the tournament expanded to 32 teams. Lou Henson had 4, 81, 84, 85, and 89. Underwood now has 2. Self has 2. Weber has 2. Underwood has led Illinois led the Illini to the NCAA tournament in 5 of the last 6 years. If you count COVID, though, it's 6 out of the last 7. But, of course, the NCAA tournament did not happen the year that COVID took effect for the whole world. So there's that. Taking a look at some key numbers here. Stojakovic, 21 points. That's his 8th game this year with 20 plus. 16 points in the first half, including 9 straight over the final 2:45 to erase VCU's only lead of the game, which was only by, I think, 4 points. Ivicic posted a double-double of 14 points and a game-high 11 rebounds. 3rd double-double of the season. And then, of course, he's in some select categories as well. Wagler had 14 points with 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal. That's oddly different than his game on Thursday night against Penn. It's good to see that he's back and productive. Let's see. Boswell recorded 12 points. And, of course, it's his 42nd double-digit scoring game of his career and tied Wagler for the team lead with a plus-minus ratio of 23. So congratulations to my alma mater on advancing to the Sweet 16 against a very good Houston Cougars team. Should be a great game. Hosted by Rice, as I said, this Thursday. Winner goes to the Elite Eight against the winner of Florida. Well, it's going to be a combo of Florida, Iowa, playing Nebraska, and then those teams, those matchups will happen. Illinois, Houston versus Florida, Iowa winner versus Nebraska. And then, of course, as those games are decided, we'll see who goes to the Elite Eight. So it should be very exciting. All right. Let's move on to the final topic of the stream here while we can. UFC, well, there's 2 more. They're going to be brief. UFC London, let's keep it short here if we can. UFC London was Saturday. Movsar Evloev remains undefeated, wins a decision against Lerone Murphy, handing Lerone Murphy, the hometown kid, his first loss in MMA. Evloev, it was very controversial because of the point deduction midway through the fight. Some people thought it should have been a draw, while others suggested that there was no issues. So Evloev wins. It looks as if he may be next for a shot at the title, although Gene Silva has something to say about that. He tried to give Hunter Campbell a contract. I don't know if it fully worked out, but the UFC has some decisions to make about what they do with Evloev and what they do with Diego Lopez next. But nonetheless, though, it should be interesting. Obviously, Diego Lopez has been extremely active as of late, as we know, and or not Diego Lopez, John Silva. My bad. I was thinking Diego Lopez because he is going to be, I'm pretty sure, let me double check so I'm not going crazy. All right, let's see here. Let me just double check. I'm getting all my fighters confused here. Let's see here. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Diego Lopez is on the White House card opposite Steve Garcia. So I was not getting them too confused, but we shall see what happens with that arrangement. Final record, we went 9-4. So we are now doing pretty well. We're 59-44 for the year on UFC. Jack Gold, double checking his numbers. He went 8-5. So I beat him out by one fight. He did, however, get the main event correct. I had Murphy, he had Evloev. So it's all good and fun. We're going to be back next week, though, or this coming week, rather, on the MMA Outsiders to preview UFC Seattle. Stay tuned for all that and so much more. But London, very mid card. What grade do I give it? Probably a C. There were some nice finishes in there as well, but the main and co-main event were not great. Still have to fully watch the main event. I was away for most of it, but nonetheless, though, some interesting prelims and another UFC event in the books. So it is what it is. All right, the spring sports schedule. So obviously baseball is going to be in full swing soon. We're going to have UFC soon, or more UFC rather. We're going to have the NFL draft. We will have the Stanley Cup and NBA playoffs starting very, very soon. And then, of course, the end of March Madness as well, with the Final Four coming up in early April. So it's only in about 12 days or so. So it should be very exciting to start thinking about the Final Four and all that stuff and spring sports. And then the countdown and anticipation to football continues. So it's very interesting. All right, that's going to do it, though, for another edition of Zan Zinger Part 2. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. This was fun to go over everything in the world of sports with you guys that I deem important for the next 30 or so minutes. Let's talk about some other logistics. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. Follow the show across social media at Panda's Breakdown. YouTube.com/EDB Network is where you'll want to subscribe to get all of the latest content across the network, including every episode of this extended stream show, if you will, on Sundays, as well as every single episode of Bando's Breakdowns. Again, a new episode dropping this week, which in fact I can plug right now. 1 second. Bando's Breakdowns episode 83, March 27th, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. We will see you there across all platforms regarding YouTube and, of course, everywhere your podcast. So stay tuned. Episode 83, much more basketball discussion to come. No guests this week or anything. I thought we were going to have a guest, but it's not working out with the current news cycle. So we will not have unnamed guests on the program. So it's all good. It's all good. But it is what it is. So there you go. But nonetheless, though, episode 83 this Friday, you won't want to miss it. March 27th, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. Go check it out across all platforms. All right, for everybody here at the ETB Network, my name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. This has been Zan Zinger Part 2 for Sunday, March 22nd, 2026. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you enjoy all of the March Madness that is to come for the next about 10 or 11 hours, starting in about 30 or so minutes. And until next week, I will see you guys soon. Have a good one. And if it's nice wherever you are, enjoy the nice weather as this is the precursor into what should be hopefully a very, very blossoming spring. But until next week, hope you all have a good one. We'll catch you guys soon, and keep it locked in across the network for more content everywhere else. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon, and cheers. Thanks.